My first encounter with Agnes occurred when I was in the 9th grade. I began dating her, and by the time I was in the 10th grade, we had become a well-established couple. Throughout our entire time in high school, we did not experience any difficulties, and, to add insult to injury, my friends and I exchanged our virginities on the evening of the senior prom. Once we were aware of sexual activity, we did it whenever we had the opportunity. Since we were in the 11th grade, we had been discussing the possibility of getting married, and we had come to the conclusion that we would wait until we had completed our education before we tied the knot. Aggie was transformed by college. During our time together in high school, our classmates identified us as a couple, and as a result, the guys left Aggie alone. However, once we arrived at college, those same circumstances did not continue to exist. The majority of the students were from other places, and the guys did not see Aggie as my girl, rather, they saw her as a desirable female, and she was constantly being hit on. There were some old classmates from our high school who were present, but the majority of the students were from other places. Although I was aware that it was taking place, there was not much that I could do to stop it. Due to the fact that we were majoring in different subjects and attending different classes, we did not typically see each other until the evenings, after classes, and after I had finished my work. Aggie's behavior changed as a result of the attention. She became more flirtatious, if there is a better word to choose. While I was on the opposite side of the quad, I noticed that she was walking with other guys and smiling and talking with them. However, she did not notice me because I was on the opposite side of the quad. When I was on my way from one class to another, I took a shortcut through the student union on 2 separate occasions. Both times, I saw Aggie in the cafeteria, when she was with a guy and when she was with 2 of them. I never noticed that she was never seen with other girls, she was always seen with guys. It wasn't until a very long time later that I realized this fact. Even though we were a couple, I never had any concerns about it. Is it true that we were in love? Do you remember that we had the intention of getting married? So there's no need for me to get worked up, no? It was only natural that she would attract guys because she was such a stunning young lady. However, she was mine, and she demonstrated this fact each and every time we got together. A total of 4 years later, we received our degrees, secured employment in our respective fields of study, tied the knot, and started a life of married bliss. I was the personification of the phrase fat, dumb, and happy for nearly 6 years before the balloon burst because of my weight. My abrupt awakening was brought about by a circumstance that was not intentional. When I arrived at work, I was seated at my desk when Molly, who worked in the mailroom, deposited some files into my inbox. I started going through it by picking up the one that was listed at the top. Considering that it was a matter that Wally was managing, I was perplexed as to why it had been sent to me. It was when I was halfway through that I discovered a significant mistake. Upon performing a brief calculation in my head, I discovered that the projections were off by nearly $3 million. I was in the process of calculating the exact number when Wally rushed into my office and asked me if I had seen the file. I was reaching for my calculator to arrive at the answer. I'd got to make copies of it and be ready to give the Apex people a presentation in half an hour. The file is right here in front of me. It is inexplicable to me why I have it. I suppose that someone wanted me to look it over, and I did so. However, I do not believe that you want to present this to Apex. Despite the fact that I am aware that this is typically just a figure of speech, I can say with absolute certainty that his face turned white when I showed him what I had discovered. Oh my God, Rob, this could have resulted in me losing my job. After saying, I need to do some quick rework on it, he grabbed the file and hurriedly left the room. I did what I always do and went to Bud's bar after work to get his half-pound ground round and a couple of beers before heading home. It was a Thursday, and Aggie always had to work late on Thursdays in order to get payroll out for the payday on Friday. When Wally came in, saw me, and joined me in my booth, I had just finished my burger and was about to start my second beer. I was beginning to drink my second beer. After placing an order for a beer with Sue, he instructed her to hand over my bill. It's the least I can do after you saved my job today. Because we weren't talking about a significant amount of money, I didn't argue with him about it. Instead, we sat down and talked about work for a while and then some more. Have you seen fill in the blank, along with a small portion of have you heard what fill in the blank did? After that, Wally completely flipped my world upside down and changed everything. Rob, I will have to ask you this question. I am aware that it is none of my business, but I must say that you are a very nice person, and I have a lot of respect for you. The reason you put up with Aggie is something I'd like to know. Wally, I am not sure what you are trying to say. I don't understand why you allow her to goof off on you. What the hell are you talking about, Wally? The moment he took a single glance at my face, his expression quickly shifted. Oh, you didn't know. I grabbed him and pulled him back down to the ground when he made an attempt to stand up. No, Wally, you do not do that. In such a manner, you would not drop a bomb on me and then immediately get up and leave. Take a seat again, and then spill it. After settling down, he addressed Rob and said, I am at a loss for words. Wally, just tell me the truth. Spit it out, that's all. I felt that you were aware, Rob. I mean, it has been 10 years, and you still don't know something about it. My God, Rob, how could you not know? Know what, Wally? That Aggie is a round-heeled 304. My eyes were fixed on him, and I was unable to formulate a single question. I am truly sorry, Rob. What I really wish is that I had never spoken. I ought to get off. But you did, Wally, so now you have to finish it, I said, shaking off the mental paralysis that I had recently experienced. How do you know that? So, how long have you been aware of this? I've known since our senior year in high school, and I know because I'm one of the many who did her. However, despite the fact that I was stunned by the information, I had an urgent need to know. Wally said, start from the very beginning, and make sure that nothing is left out. We ask that you not omit anything from this list. It was shocking to me that the story that was unfolding was not only shocking in terms of its content, but also shocking in terms of the fact that it had been going on for more than 10 years and I had not the slightest clue, not even at all. Wally had gone to his cousin's house 2 weeks after the senior prom. As was his custom, he simply walked into the house and went straight to George's bedroom, where he knew George would be working on his computer. Wally's cousin was George. It was not George who was using the computer, rather, he was with Aggie. Wally made his presence known to both of them as he stood there watching them. He took off his clothes and waited for his turn to exit the vehicle because neither of them yelled at him to do so. They took turns screwing Aggie until she called a halt to the proceedings. He and George took turns screwing Aggie. During my time working at Jessop's Market on a part-time basis, she informed me that she needed to get cleaned up and meet me when I arrived home from work. Every time I was at work, he and George would screw her off and on. This continued until George met Melody Martin and began a serious relationship with her. Wally was taken advantage of by her for a couple of weeks, and then one day, when he stopped by to see her, she was already taking advantage of Mike Bella and Justin Walsh besides Wally. The three of them worked on her until she had to stop so that she could meet me. He undressed and joined in on the activity along with them. Wally shared her with a number of other guys, and she had pulled trains with more than a half-dozen guys present on numerous occasions. It is true that we were friends, but it is not the case that we were the best of friends, do you understand what I mean? It was when we were 18 years old and had sex on the brain that you remember how things were. On the other hand, I didn't think the two of you were all that serious anyway, even though you were kind of going steady with each other. I mean, if you were being completely serious, would she be able to fool anyone if they showed her a tool that was difficult to use? The fact that we started college did not bring about any changes. As far as I can recall, during her first semester as a freshman, she attended classes on Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday, and Wednesday. She did not have any classes on Wednesday. The last class she had from Monday through Thursday ended at 2 o'clock, and the last class she had from Tuesday through Friday ended at 1 o'clock. When Aggie got out of class, she was off to a bedroom somewhere, and when you got out of class, you went to work. I don't remember your schedule, but whatever happened was that you went to work. There was a sex marathon going on all day on Wednesday. That was the case throughout the entirety of my time in school, Rob. The class schedules were different from one term to the next, but one thing that remained the same was that Aggie would spread after school and until you got off work. My tone makes it sound as though it happened every day, but in reality, it didn't. On the other hand, twice or 3 times per week. The majority of us guys were taken aback when you and Aggie tied the knot. We simply knew that you had to be aware of what she had been up to, but your decision to marry her was still surprising. Quite a few of us had the impression that you were one of those guys who enjoyed watching your women engage in sexual activity with other men. Despite the fact that no one ever remembered seeing you with another girl, Tyler was under the impression that you and Aggie worked together as swingers. However, we regularly witnessed Aggie in the company of other males. Wally, I honestly had no idea. Nothing, not even the tiniest hint of an idea. Damn, Rob, I'm sorry to be the one to let you in on the secret, but given that you have never been aware of it, it is reasonable to assume that you are unaware of the fact that she has a regular Thursday night date with Bob and Bill Howard. When you bowl on Tuesday, she plans to meet with Mark Willard. It is a sure bet that whenever you were away somewhere doing something, Aggie was also there. I do not know who else she sees or when she sees them, but I do know that she is present. Despite the fact that it is not particularly significant, I did stop doing her when you got married. Having a relationship with a married woman is a completely different challenge than having a relationship with a woman who is single. Even though I have no idea what to say to you, Wally, and I have no idea what I'm going to do, I am absolutely certain that I will take some kind of action. After I had finished my beer, I got up and got ready to leave. When I came to a stop, I turned to Wally. Sincerely, Wally. I would like to express my gratitude for the burger, the beer, and for rescuing me from my poop problem. During the time that I was driving back to my house, I was thinking about what Wally had shared with me. Was I able to believe what he had to say? I responded with a no way. On the one hand, since Aggie loves me, she would never do something like that to me. On the other hand, the question that was being asked was, why might Wally lie to me? It was time for me to come to terms with the fact that he would not. He was aware that I would investigate what he had been telling me, and if he had been dishonest, how would we be able to continue working together? Wally was acutely aware of the fact that the response was that we would not be able to. It was going to be difficult enough to work with him knowing about him and Aggie, but we would eventually get through it because I did remember what it was like to be a teenager and have sex on the brain, and I knew that if some other guy's girl had offered me sex as a teenager and I didn't have Aggie, I would have accepted the offer. And the real question was, Rob, what the hell are you going to do at this point? Unbeknownst to me, Aggie and I had concluded our relationship. I might have been able to get away with a drunken mistake that occurred during a single night or even a brief affair if Aggie had been able to persuade me that it would never happen again. But for a period of 10 years in full? In no way. I pretended to be asleep in bed when Aggie returned home from her trip to the payroll office, and I paid no attention to her when she reached out and touched me with her hand. Despite the fact that the witch wanted to give me sloppy seconds, I was not going to put up with it. I had been getting them for years, and although I didn't realize it at the time, it hadn't killed me. I had been getting them for years. On the other hand, I did it now, and the sensation of her hand on my body made my skin crawl. Furthermore, for the very first time in my life, I did not get an erection when Aggie was controlling me. I was awake before Aggie in the morning, where I was reading the morning paper and drinking coffee. When Aggie came down, I was already in the middle of my reading. The question is, what did you do last night? The moment I arrived home, I was eager and horny, but you were already in bed. No, Rob, that is not typical of you. Something that I ate didn't agree with me, and I was feeling poorly, so I went to bed early. To put it simply, I really do hope that you are feeling better today. To make up for what happened the night before, I'm going to require you to put in double the effort tonight. I called Felix Matter as soon as I arrived at my place of employment. Felix, who had been a friend of mine since high school, was now an attorney who worked in the field of corporate law. My question was, whatever that was, and I asked him to suggest a divorce attorney who would take no prisoners. It was his question, what does that mean? It means that what I'd hoped was true isn't, but you were looking for a divorce lawyer, I responded in response. This indicates that what I believed you and Aggie had is not what you and Aggie actually have, and that you have at long last received information regarding her. Or did you think that we were married in a manner that was open to the public? How was it possible for Aggie to continue doing what she was doing while still being with you? It was clear to everyone that you were completely devoted to her. I mean, it was obvious. What could possibly be the reason for that unless you were content with what she was doing? To your surprise, Felix, the first, had no idea what she was doing until yesterday. She had no idea what she was carrying out. A couple of seconds passed during which Felix remained silent, and then he spoke up and said, "Give Tomu a call and tell him I sent you." I called Sweet and informed him that Felix had recommended him. Sweet indicated that he would be willing to meet with me on that particular day if I could be present at 1 o'clock. Despite my assurances to him, I was able to make it. Sweet informed me that my choices included a peaceful separation as well as a scorched earth policy based on the philosophy of Attila the Hun. As we do not live in a state that is based on the principle of no fault, adultery was a valid reason for divorce. On the other hand, in order to file for divorce on the basis of adultery, you need to have evidence that cannot be disputed. You can't rely on hearsay. How do I go about obtaining the evidence that I require? I inquired about it. I was given a card that he had taken out of his desk and handed to me. The name of the private investigator, Gaston Marshall, was read. Just across the street is where you'll find his office. I can give him a call and see if he can get you in right away if that is something you would like me to do. I would appreciate it. In the shortest amount of time possible, I would like to finish this. Proceed with the processing of the divorce paperwork, and I will send the evidence to you as soon as I have it in my possession. Sweet made the call, and 10 minutes later, Gaston Marshall was telling me what we needed to do. Unfortunately, one of the things I needed to do was act completely natural around Aggie and not give her any reason to suspect that I wasn't still the clueless clown she was accustomed to. And as distasteful as it may be to you, Marshall said, it means no changes in your routine. If you have sex 3 or 4 times a week, you have to do it. If you are usually the instigator, you will need to do it. Just remember that you are no longer making love, you were just getting your rocks off. Do not do anything that might make her change her routine in any way. It is important to us and what we want to happen that she be clueless of the fact that there has been a change in your relationship. I went back to my office and bit the bullet and called Aggie at work. It was our habit to go out for dinner every Friday night and for breakfast every Sunday morning, so when I got her on the phone, I asked her if Trakis was okay for dinner, and she said it was. While I was eating my veal marsala and Aggie was working on her rigatoni and sipping white wine, employees of Marshall Investigations were placing wireless cameras and listening devices in the house. As I took a sip of my mellow, I was running over Marshall's words to me. It is natural that you will try to spot the hidden cameras, but you have to fight the urge. If she notices you doing it, there is a chance that all of our efforts will be wasted. The other thing you will need to do is force yourself to act natural in the bedroom, and that is not going to be an easy thing for you to do unless you are a born exhibitionist. The system is sound and motion activated, and you will be on camera knowing that it is likely that some of my employees will see you. You cannot let that inhibit you. There is a switch that will allow you to turn off the system when you are at home, but experience has shown that most will forget to turn the switch back on when they leave the house. My advice to you is leave the system alone and try and pretend that you are a spicy star at work making a sex tape. After dinner, I asked Aggie if she wanted to go for a few drinks and maybe some dancing, and she told me no. We need to get home so you can make it up to me for letting me down last night. On the way home, she slid over next to me. Unzip your pants, drive carefully, sweetie, don't hit anything that might make me bite off your meat. In my mind, what she was doing was not something special for me, but what she had done with 100 other men over the last 10 years. But disgusted as I might be with Aggie, human nature took over a couple of minutes into things, and my body liked it and wanted her to continue on and get me off. Soon, I was done, and I turned into our driveway. Aggie then told me to hurry up and get up to the bedroom. I couldn't follow Marshall's advice. No way could I act natural knowing that I might be screwing for an audience. It was going to be a chore just trying to act natural as I screwed Aggie, so I went to where I was told the switch would be and I shut the system off. I left my cell phone on the seat of the car, knowing. I went back to my office and bit the bullet, calling Aggie at work. It was our habit to go out for dinner every Friday night and for breakfast every Sunday morning, so when I got her on the phone, I asked her if trachis was okay for dinner, and she said it was. While I was eating my veal marsala and Aggie was working on her rigatoni and sipping white wine, employees of Marshall Investigations were placing wireless cameras and listening devices in the house. As I took a sip of my mellow, I was running over Marshall's words to me. It is natural that you will try to spot the hidden cameras, but you have to fight the urge. If she notices you doing it, there is a chance that all of our efforts will be wasted. The other thing you will need to do is force yourself to act natural in the bedroom, and that is not going to be an easy thing for you to do unless you are a born exhibitionist. The system is sound and motion activated, and you will be on camera knowing that it is likely that some of my employees will see you. You cannot let that inhibit you. There is a switch that will allow you to turn off the system when you are at home, but experience has shown that most will forget to turn the switch back on when they leave the house. My advice to you is leave the system alone and try and pretend that you are a spicy star at work making a sex tape. After dinner, I asked Aggie if she wanted to go for a few drinks and maybe some dancing, and she told me no. We need to get home so you can make it up to me for letting me down last night. On the way home, she slid over next to me. Unzip your pants, drive carefully, sweetie, don't hit anything that might make me bite off your meat. In my mind, what she was doing was not something special for me, but what she had done with 100 other men over the last 10 years. But disgusted as I might be with Aggie, human nature took over a couple of minutes into things, and my body liked it and wanted her to continue on and get me off. Soon, I was done, and I turned into our driveway. Aggie then told me to hurry up and get up to the bedroom. I couldn't follow Marshall's advice. No way could I act natural knowing that I might be screwing for an audience. It was going to be a chore just trying to act natural as I screwed Aggie, so I went to where I was told the switch would be and I shut the system off. I left my cell phone on the seat of the car, knowing that when I saw it when I went to leave the house, it would remind me to turn the system back on. I don't know if it registered on Aggie or not, but I didn't make love to her that night. I drilled her, unfortunately, once was not enough, and I had to perform 2 more times before Aggie would let me go to sleep. I got up in the morning and dressed to go for my morning run. Before I left, Aggie reminded me that she wouldn't be there when I got back. I'll be having my hair done, but I should be home by 2. I had always wondered why her hair appointment took from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Aggie said that it was because she got to gossiping with the other regulars and usually ended up going to lunch with them. It could even be the truth, but after what I'd recently found out, I was thinking that she probably met one of her sex buddies either before or after getting her hair done. On my way out, I turned the switch for the system back on. I doubted that anything would happen while I was on my run, but I needed to get into the habit of making sure that the system was on when I wasn't home. The switch only shut off the cameras, the listening devices and phone tap were always on. I did my usual 5 miles, and when I got back to the house, I went down into the basement and opened up the cabinet above my workbench. It is where I told Marshall to put the recorders. I figured that it was the best location since Aggie rarely went into the basement and almost never went into my work area. There were 2 receivers in the cabinet, one was for the listening devices and phone tap, and the other was a DVD recorder that received the input from the wireless cameras. I checked the recorder for the phone tap and had my suspicions confirmed. Hello, good morning, lover. Are we still on for today? You bet. The wife took the kids to the zoo, so we have until 6 o'clock tonight. You know I can't stay that long. I need to be home by 2. Any later and he might get to wondering. He has already questioned the fact that I don't get home until 2. Then skip the hair job and get over here so we can make it happen. Yeah, sure. Then what do I tell Rob when he asks why I've been gone so long and my hair hasn't been done? Tell him you want more time with me, baby, but we have to settle for what we can get. I recognized the man's voice. It was my cousin Lou. I was steaming when I went back upstairs, wondering how many of my other relatives she had screwed or was screwing. I was able to get my anger under control by the time Aggie got home from her hair appointment, and I was able to hold it together. An hour after she got home, I faked a fall down the basement stairs and told Aggie that I'd hurt my back. Must have pulled a muscle or something. That took care of having to screw her for the next couple of days, at least. On Monday, I called Aggie at work and told her that I was going to be going out of town on Tuesday and would be gone until Friday, and that I'd be home in time to take her out to dinner. There was no trip, of course. It might be a wasted 3 days, but I didn't think so. I traveled on average once a month, and Aggie was always home when I made my nightly check and phone call, since my calls were at regular times anywhere from 7 to 10. I doubted that she waited for my calls and then went out, so if she was cheating around on me as much as I had been led to believe, she was probably doing it on our bed as I was talking to her. That was my hope anyway. If she was, and the cameras caught it, I would have what my attorney wanted in the way of irrefutable proof for the divorce action. That evening, Aggie wanted to make love. I need something to hold me for the 3 nights you will be gone. Yeah, right. Fortunately for me, at least, my back was still hurting, so I had to beg off. Tuesday morning, Aggie kissed me goodbye, suitcase in hand. I left the house for my business trip. I drove to work and got in almost a full day. I left at 3 and drove to our neighborhood and parked a block over from the house. Using my laptop, I punched in a code that Marshall had given me that activated the software he had loaded onto my computer. A few keystrokes, and I was listening to the recorder on the phone line. Hello? Hey, sexy, honk, it's me. What's up? Hubby just left on a 3-day trip. You ready to spend 3 fun-filled nights with me? Does a duck walk barefoot on the beach? I'll take that as a yes. I leave it to you to call Tony. I've got to get out of here and get to work. I'll be home by 6. See you then. I shut down the computer and called Tom Sweet and told him to have the papers ready to serve by Thursday, and then I told him how I wanted it done. He told me that to do it that way would cost me more than the standard service fee, and I told him that I didn't care. I left the neighborhood and drove to the other side of town and checked into a motel. It had a restaurant and a bar just next door, and I settled in for a 3-day stay. I liked the bar, it was my kind of place. Every time I went there, it put a big smile on my face, apologies to Toby Keith. It was a country or western bar, and the jukebox was loaded with good tunes to dance to. Every night I stopped there, I saw 3 or 4 unattached ladies who couldn't stand to see a man sitting alone while there was music to dance to being played. The first time I was there, I was sitting at the bar nursing a long neck when a great-looking redhead came up to me and said, "Come on, sugar. They're playing our song." She took my hand, pulled me off the bar stool, and led me out onto the dance floor. As I took her in my arms and started to waltz, she said, "Don't get the wrong idea, sugar. I'm not trolling, I just love to dance, and you were there." Her name was Rhonda, and after the dance, she invited me to join her and her 2 friends, Laura and Shelby, at their table. I spent until 10:30 taking turns dancing with them, and then I told them I had to call it a night. "Maybe we will see you again," Rhonda said. "We are in here 2 or 3 nights a week. I'm just next door in the motel, so it is likely that I will be in here the next 2 nights." I went to bed in a good mood for the first time since my talk with Wally. The next afternoon at 3, I was parked a block over from the house, watching what the wireless cameras had picked up the night before. The 2 guys who joined Aggie in the bedroom were young guys, at least 6 years younger than Aggie. I wondered if it was youthful exuberance that Aggie was after. The content was nothing exceptional, it was just plain sucking and screwing. Although it was a bit strange seeing my wife double-teamed, the visuals of Aggie screwing the 2 guys didn't really interest me. What I wanted was the audio. I was surprised at what I heard, or more to the point, what I didn't hear. I expected to hear Aggie ridiculing me and my lovemaking skills, or lack thereof, but she never did shoot me through the grease. It was the same Wednesday, the only time I was mentioned was when one of the guys said that he wished they could get together more often. Aggie told him that she was sorry, but that I had first call on her time. What I did pick up was Aggie telling them that they had to be out of the house by 6 o'clock in the morning. None of the neighbors are early risers, so I need you to be gone before they get up and see you leaving. Both Wednesday and Thursday morning, they left the house right at 6 o'clock, and I assumed that it would be the same on Friday. I called my attorney and had him change the serving of the papers until Friday at 5:45. Friday morning, I was parked just down the street from the house. At 5:55, the front door opened, and the two guys came out. They turned to say goodbye to Aggie, who was standing just inside the door, and that is when they saw the man standing just off to the side. He stepped in front of the open door, served Aggie, and then turned and walked away, leaving Aggie and her two sex buddies looking at his back. I pulled up in front of the house, honked the horn to make sure that I had Aggie's attention, and then I waved bye-bye and drove off. In the papers that were served on Aggie was a letter from me to her. Basically, it said that I never wanted to speak to her again unless it was in the presence of our attorneys. I didn't want to know why. I didn't want to hear that she loved only me and it was just meaningless sex with the others. I didn't want to hear that it wasn't what I thought it was, and I didn't want to hear that we could get by it because of our love for each other. I did not want to hear any of the garbage that cheaters come up with to try and excuse their actions when they get caught. Of course, Aggie paid no attention to the letter, and 15 minutes after I had pulled away from the house, my cell rang, and it was Aggie. I let it go to voicemail, along with the next 7 calls from her. When I got to work, I told my secretary that I had left Aggie and not to put any calls from her through. I had another thought as I was opening my office door, and I turned back to her. Another thing, Martha. If she shows up here, please tell her that I'm not here. Tell her I've gone to meet with a customer. Martha stuck her head in the door 5 minutes later. I talked to Iris on the front desk. If your wife shows up, she will call me and stall your wife to give you time to get out the side door. You can go to the cafe and have coffee until she leaves. I thanked her, and as she went back to her desk, I thought, and not for the first time, that a good secretary is a priceless thing to have. Aggie called my cell 17 times that day, and I didn't take any of the calls. At lunchtime, I called my dad and brother and let them know what was going on. I told Dad to tell Mom and asked her to refrain from trying to get me to sit down and work things out with Aggie. He told me that he would see what he could do. It would be hard because my mom looked on Aggie as the daughter she never had. At the end of the day, I still had some work that needed to be done, and since I didn't have to hurry home, I decided to stay and finish it up. At 5, Martha told me that she was leaving and would see me in the morning. And by the way, your wife called 5 times before noon, and each time I told her that I had instructions not to put her through to you. I think she finally got the message, since she hasn't called since. I finished around 7, and when I got to the lobby, of course, Iris was gone, and Hank, our night watchman, was sitting at the reception desk. He saw me and said, "Hot time on the town tonight with the missus?" "Why would you think that?" "She is out there waiting on you. We are getting a divorce, Hank, and she wants to talk, and I don't. If she knocks on the door, don't open it, and if she uses the intercom, tell her that you were alone in the building and that when you came to work, there was a note in the turnover log that my car was in the lot because I couldn't get it started and that the towing company would be here in the morning to take it to the shop." "Okay, no problem, Mr. Burns." "Sorry to hear it, divorces ain't no fun, know that 'cause I've had 2 of them. I'm going out the back door to avoid her." I went out the back door, went around the block, crossed the street, and walked down the alley to the back door of Dave's Diner and went in and took a seat. I sat where I could see Aggie waiting by my car. I ordered the special and kept an eye on her while I ate. I was halfway through my dessert when she went up to the building and pressed the call button on the intercom. Hank apparently told her what I'd asked him to because she went back to her car and left. I finished dessert, had 1 more cup of coffee, and then left. I stopped in the bar for a beer or 2, and even though there were a couple of ladies there alone hoping for a dance partner, I had my 2 beers and left. Saturday morning was a busy one for me as I ran around and did all the things I should have done before serving Aggie. I just hoped that I wasn't too late and she hadn't gotten around to doing what I should have done. I hit the bank and cleaned out all the accounts and took the certificates of deposit and my personal papers out of the safe deposit box, but left all of Aggie's stuff in it. I took off my wedding ring and dropped it in the box for her to find. I hit the Waffle House for breakfast, and while there, I used my cell phone to call and take care of the credit cards. There were only 2 that were joint, and I cancelled them both. That left me with a Visa and an American Express that were in my name only. Aggie also had 2 in her name only, so all I really accomplished was to make sure she couldn't run up the joint cards by taking out cash advances. When I finished breakfast, I drove back to the motel, parked my car, and called a cab to take me to the nearest Avis rental place. I rented the cheapest car they had and went back to the motel. I spent the afternoon lounging by the motel pool and reading a book. Just before I went to eat, I turned on my cell phone and checked for messages. There were 9, all from Maggie. I cleared them and then turned the phone back off. I had a light dinner and then headed for the bar. On Friday and Saturday, the bar featured a live band, and the place was completely packed with people. After locating a seat at the bar, I placed an order for a beer. When I felt a tug on my shirt, I had already consumed approximately half of it. There was Rhonda standing there when I turned around. "Hey cowboy, why are you sitting here when there is a seat at our table for you? I didn't see you, what with the crowd and all." To be honest about it, had I seen you, I wouldn't have intruded on you. It would have seemed like I was taking things for granted. Nonsense, come on. I got up and followed her to her table and saw that Laura and Shelby were also there. I sat down, said hi to the girls, and then said, "There seems to be something wrong with this picture. 3 stone foxes sitting at a table alone and you aren't swamped with guys you had to come and get me? That just ain't right. We get a lot of attention, but it is usually from a-holes. They see us here, notice the wedding rings, and think that we are here looking for some guy for the night. Just 3304 is out looking to cheat on their husbands. We are just here because we want to dance, and only a couple of guys understand that and accept it. The rest think they're God's gift to women, and we have to fight them off. After the other night, we know that you're one of the good guys, and you have an open invitation to join us whenever you come in, and we are here. It isn't any of my business, and I know it, so feel free to tell me that, but I have to ask, why are 3 gorgeous married women spending time in a place like this without your husbands? It is a legitimate question." Rhonda said, "Laura's husband is in the Army Reserve, and his unit was sent to Afghanistan. She was going nuts cooped up in her house alone, so we decided to get her out. Shelby's husband works afternoons, and my hubby is a long-haul trucker and is gone a lot, so the 3 of us banded together to keep each other company. We love to dance, and here we are. What's your story? I noticed that you had a ring on last time we saw you, and now it is gone. I served my wife with divorce papers yesterday morning and took the ring off and left it where she would find it. Do you feel that frees you up to hunt?" "Not in the least. The grounds were adultery, and I have no intention of doing anything that she can use for grounds in a countersuit." "Good," Laura said. "We have a safe dancing partner." Until the time that the establishment closed its doors, I spent the rest of the evening taking turns dancing with the 3 of them and sharing them with the occasional guy that they said yes to asking out. Sunday was a peaceful day spent by the pool with a book, and Monday was the day that I drove the rental car to work. The hope that I had was that Aggie would not see my car and would believe that I was once again out of town, causing her to avoid me. On a daily basis, I received anywhere from 6 to 10 calls from Aggie, but I never answered any of them. This continued throughout the week. She called me twice from numbers that I was not familiar with, and each time I answered the phone and heard her voice, I immediately hung up on her in response. Every evening after dinner, I made a habit of going to the bar and drinking a couple of beers. During the Wednesday and Friday that I was there, Rhonda, Laura, and Shelby were already there, and I joined them. While I was with them, we danced until 10 o'clock on Wednesday and until the door was closed on Friday. I was under the impression that by Saturday, Aggie would have arrived at the conclusion that I was not going to communicate with her, so I returned my rental car and drove my own vehicle to work on Monday. A poor decision on my part. At the time that I emerged from the building on Monday, she was parked next to my vehicle. As soon as she spotted me approaching, she exited her vehicle and got out to stand by the door of the driver's side of my vehicle. Upon my arrival at the vehicle, she informed me, "We need to talk, Rob." However, I chose to disregard her, and she proceeded to block the door. After I pushed her out of the way, she stumbled and came dangerously close to falling. I said, "Come on, Rob, you need to let me explain." In the time it took her to regain her equilibrium, I had already gotten into the car. I rolled the window down and said, "You need to go back and read the letter that was with the divorce papers, Aggie. I will not talk to you unless my attorney is present, and even then, all I will talk about is the details of the divorce. I don't want a divorce, Rob, and I don't want you, Aggie. We're done, accept it because I'm not going to change my mind." I rolled the window up and drove off, leaving her standing there. I realized that Aggie was not going to accept my refusal to talk to her when I got off work on Tuesday. She was not going to accept my refusal. As I approached my vehicle, 2 men approached me and each grabbed one of my arms. I was unable to move from their grasp. It was clear to me that they were the same 2 individuals who had cheated Aggie in our bedroom. One of them said, "Don't do anything stupid, old man, and you won't get hurt. Miss Aggie says she wants to talk to you, and you are being obstinate, so we are taking you to her the easy way or the hard way. But you're coming with us, old man." I was only 6 or maybe 7 years older than they were. They must have thought that since I was wearing a suit and a tie and carrying a briefcase, I was some soft old guy. I figured that I could take them. They wouldn't be expecting the old guy to do anything against the 2 of them, so surprise should let me get one of them out of the way, and one-on-one, I was pretty sure that I could take the other one. Either way, the ruckus would draw attention, and their little kidnapping caper would be in the can. But then I thought, do I really want to? If Aggie was going to go to those lengths just to get to talk to me, what would she try next? If I sent these 2 back to her all bloodied up, I allowed them to push me into my car, and I sat between them, briefcase on my lap, as I was driven to the house. They escorted me inside, and Aggie told them to sit me down in a chair and make sure that I stayed there. She turned to me and said, "We are not getting a divorce." When she said that, I started to get up from the chair, but the 2 guys pushed me back down and held me there as one of them said, "You will stay put if you know what is good for you." "We are going to remain married," Aggie said, "but there will be some adjustments to the way that we live. I'm sorry that you learned about my medical condition, but now that you are aware of it, you are going to have to learn to live with it. Whether you realize it or not, I love you. I will not separate myself from you because I love you." "Is there a medical issue?" "Which medical condition is it?" "I suffer from nymphomania. From the time I was in high school, I have been a nymphomaniac. When you took my virginity, you set it free to run wild." "None of that. They have medications that are capable of treating conditions like that." "Yes, they do, and I've tried each and every one of them. I don't like sitting around looking like a blob because they make me sluggish and stupid, and I don't like getting fat. In addition, I enjoy the role of a nympho. It should be obvious to you that I enjoy screwing around. The Lord knows that I don't leave you alone very often, and the things that I do don't end up hurting you in the least. I adore you, and I do everything in my power to make you happy. Would it make a difference if I gave someone something that you couldn't use anyway? I wouldn't require anyone else if you were able to maintain your intensity around the clock, but since you are unable to do so, I have to give the excess to other people. I do not love them, rather, I love you, and I always return to you when I am at home. And this is how things are going to turn out. I have included a post-nuptial agreement in which you consent to my having as many lovers as I need to maintain my sanity. I have written this agreement down. In the event that you later come to the conclusion that you do not wish to continue the marriage under those circumstances, you have agreed to leave the marriage with nothing. And in return for what? What else do I get for a wife besides a salary of $304? You are going to get the same loving wife that you have had for the past 6 years, and you are well aware that you thought those years were perfect. You thought that our marriage and our life were perfect, despite the fact that I was doing the very thing that you are now finding problematic throughout the entire time. At this point, the only thing that is wrong is that your ego is involved. It has come to your attention that someone else is making use of something that you have always considered to be only yours. You simply have to come to terms with the fact that our lives will proceed in the same manner as they have for the past 6 years. It is necessary for you to acknowledge that this does not imply that you are not a man who is suitable for me. You are an incredible lover, and whenever we engage in sexual activity together, you never fail to leave me feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Simply put, you are unable to do it as much as I require it. According to her, I'll tell you what, Agnes. She detested being called Agnes. I'll sign it if you make a few changes to it. What kinds of alterations have taken place? You don't ever have sex with me on a day you have sex with others, and we sleep in separate bedrooms. I am unable to do that. I am in need of you, and I require you to be in the same bed as me. If you have such a thick skull, why are you unable to comprehend the fact that I love you and that I do not want to lose you? Agnes, don't worry about it. Keep the changes from being made. I was never interested in signing your so-called agreement in the first place. In that case, I'll go ahead and make the damn adjustments and get to work on getting you back into bed with me later. I'll go to the computer, fix the problem, and then I'll come back to you right away. I tried to get out of the chair, but the two guys made me sit there against my will. When I told them that I needed to use the restroom, one of them told me to just pee your pants. When Aggie returned 5 minutes later, she read the document to me, and I asked, "Where do I sign?" Aggie said, "Miss Aggie told you to stay in the chair, so you aren't getting up until she says so." She held out a pen, and I said, "Your two goons won't let me get up. Let them up, guys." I got up, walked over to her, and set my briefcase down on the table and took the pen from her. Then I put the pen down and said, "Not that I don't trust you, but I think I'll read it just to be sure that it says what you said it says." I picked it up, read it, and then I laughed and tore it up and threw it in her face. I picked up my briefcase and headed for the door. "Stop him!" Aggie yelled, and the two guys started after me. And when they were close enough, I spun around toward them with my briefcase heading for the first guy's head. It was a solid hit, and he went down. The second guy was caught by surprise, and before he realized that I was on him, I punched him in the mouth, and he stumbled backwards. And I kicked him in the balls as hard as I could, and he went down. Being no dummy, I knew that it was 2 against 1. I needed to keep them down, and I went to work giving the boot to both of them. I took turns kicking them in the crotch, ribs, and head until Aggie screamed, "Stop it, Rob, or I'll shoot you." It was then that I turned my attention to Aggie and noticed that she was pointing a gun in my direction. "Go ahead and shoot, you miserable witch." I took out my cell phone, called 911, gave my name and address, and told the operator that my wife was pointing a gun at me and threatening to shoot me. The operator told me to stay calm and do nothing that would excite my wife and that a car was on the way. I closed the phone and said, "Thank you, Agnes. If you are incarcerated, the divorce process will go much more quickly and easily." That was a stupid move, Rob. You are going to be the one who is taken into custody when the police arrive. Upon entering, you discovered that I was conversing with 2 friends, and then you erupted into a jealous rage and attacked them. It is going to be your word against ours, 3 against 1, and at the same time, we are completely covered. You will be arrested for assault. Oh, Agnes, how could you possibly do that? I can see all of the love that you have for me shining through. Don't worry about it, Rob. You will be rescued by me, and Barry and Tony will not file any charges against you. It will all turn out for the best. Agnes read this again. At work, Hank witnessed these 2 scoundrels picking me up, and Joyce, who lives next door, witnessed them escorting me into the house. When I tried to leave, you told your lovers to stop me from leaving. My story is that you brought me here against my will and then brought me here against my will. They attempted it, but were unsuccessful, and then you pulled a gun on me. It is possible that I will end up spending the night in jail. However, when my witnesses give their testimony, you will be the one who is sitting in jail, and I can assure you that I will not be successful in obtaining your bail. At this point, let's take a look at what we have: kidnapping and unlawful detention. I have no doubt that there will be some kind of charge brought against me for the act of threatening me with the gun, and in addition to that, there will be charges for knowingly making false statements to the police. There might even be additional ones that I am unable to think of. Agnes, your best bet is to keep your mouth shut and not say anything. As a result of Aggie's refusal to heed my counsel, she and her 2 con artists perpetrated their lies. Someone took me to the jail. I gave Tom Sight a call in the morning and informed him of the situation. I also suggested that he should make arrangements with Gaston Marshall to acquire the tapes and then proceed with the tasks that needed to be completed. I was informed by Aggie that she would not be able to release me from jail because I would first need to appear before a judge in order to have my bail set, and that would not take place until Monday. Tom had a friend who worked as an assistant district attorney, and that friend allowed him to listen to the tapes of the events that took place at the house. It depicted Aggie pointing the gun at me while Barry and Tony were holding me back against my will. She told the ADA that she was going to lie, and she was going to have her 2 Confederates lie as well. Following her appearance at the courthouse on Monday morning for the hearing regarding my bail, Aggie was taken into custody. The warrants for Barry and Tony were issued, and by the time night fell, they were secured with a lock and key. I rejected the idea of posting bail for Aggie, and her parents were unable to do so because they did not possess the necessary funds. The bail bondsman wanted me to put up the house as security for Aggie's bail bond, and he called me to tell me about it. Aggie had hired an attorney. I chuckled at him and then ended the call. Due to the fact that Aggie had threatened me with a gun, I moved out of the motel and back into the house. After that, I called a locksmith and had all of the locks changed. To protect himself from Aggie, Tom was successful in obtaining a protection order. It would be impossible for her to come within 1,000 feet of me without being arrested and sent back to jail, even if she were to have managed to escape from jail in some way. In spite of the fact that having sex with Aggie might have been good, it appears that it was not worth doing serious time over, and as a result, both Barry and Tony gave up Aggie and made deals. She was just trying to get me to stop beating on her 2 cohorts before I killed one of them and had to go to jail for it. Aggie stated that she would never have pulled the trigger on me. She was just trying to get me to stop attacking them. After listening to the tape, the jury came to the conclusion that she was most likely telling the truth when she stated that she was only attempting to prevent me from killing Barry or Tony. This conclusion was reached based on some of the things that she said, particularly her declarations of love for me. She was found not guilty of the felony charge of menacing, but she was found guilty of the charges of unlawful restraint and the charge of making a false police report, in addition to a number of other minor charges. A sentence of 9 months in county jail and 1,000 hours of community service was handed down by the judge. In the event that she was released from custody while she was incarcerated, the divorce was able to proceed without any complications, and the only thing I lost in the transaction was 20% of the equity in the house. I went to the bank and deposited the money into her account, and then I went to the bar that was located next to the motel where I had stayed. The fact that Rhonda and Shelby were present was a stroke of good luck, and I asked them to join me in celebrating my first day of freedom. Her husband had returned from the wars, and the 2 of them were busy getting back in touch with each other and playing catch-up. This was the reason why Laura was absent. The question that Rhonda posed was, "So, why do you want to celebrate with us?" "Because I'm taking a shot in the dark here. I saw the rings on Laura, and I can see the rings on Shelby, but you aren't wearing rings, and I see no lines on your fingers that would indicate that you ever did have them, so I am betting that there is no long-haul trucker in your life. That, and I've always had a thing for hot-looking redheads." Shelby laughed and said, "You were so busted, girl," as I pulled Rhonda out of her chair and led her out onto the dance floor. I then led Rhonda out onto the dance floor. Listeners, I would appreciate it if you could share your thoughts in the comments section below. Additionally, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.